It's August 2024 and I'm in the Dutch city of Arnhem, standing on a bridge too far. Located on the Nederrijn, around 10 miles from the German border, the capital of the Gelderland province, 12th largest city in the Netherlands and a dizzying 13 metres above sea level, the city of Arnhem was first mentioned in 893. Human activity around this part of the Lower Rhine can be traced back around 70,000 years, when Neanderthal civilizations were dominant across Europe. There's evidence of settlement in the area to the north of modern-day centre of Arnhem around 1500 BCE, and traces of the current inner city from around 700 BCE, with both those settlements being on higher ground above the river rather than down by the banks. In 1233, Count Otto II of Gelderland confirmed city rights onto the town of Arnhem, which until then had belonged to the Abbey of Prüm. Otto settled in and fortified the town. 210 years later, the city entered the Hanseatic League, and 30 years later, in 1473, the city was captured by Charles the Bold of Burgundy. Over the next couple of hundred years, the city kept changing hands, with the Duke of Gelderland wresting back control in 1514, only to lose it to the Habsburgs under Emperor Charles V. Combined Dutch and English forces captured the city from Spanish forces in 1585, and the city became part of the Dutch Republic. It passed through both revolutionary and imperial French control until the Kingdom of the Netherlands was fully established in 1815. With a sort of peace falling across Europe with the defeat of Napoleon, the city felt secure enough to dismantle the medieval city walls, creating space for the core of the city to grow both towards and along the river. Today, only the Sabelspoort, Sabre Gate, also called the Eusebius Port, is left standing of the old city walls. Arnhem's city walls had 4 gates, with the Sabelspoort originally being part of a castle. It also served as a lock-up for both prisoners and lunatics. In 1642, the gate was restored and given a Renaissance facade on the city side. Over the following centuries, housing and other buildings enclosed the gate, slowly hiding parts of the structure. Following the devastation of the city during the Second World War, the buildings that surrounded the gate were so badly damaged that they were demolished and not rebuilt, so the gate could be freed up to be visible. Once the damage the gate itself had received could be repaired. Repairs were completed in 1952, and at the same time it was linked to the adjacent provincial House of Gelderland. During the 19th century, Arnhem became a genteel resort town, famous for its beauty. For a while it was known as the Little Hague of the East, mainly for the number of rich former sugar barons or planters from the Indies that settled in Arnhem, matching the numbers settling in Den Haag. The city had escaped most of World War II unscathed. That all changed in September 1944 with the Battle of Arnhem, part of Operation Market Garden. Operation Market Garden was an Allied operation that took place from the 17th to the 25th of September 1944. Its objective was to create a 64-mile salient into German territory and establish a bridgehead over the Nederrijn, creating a route for the Allies to invade Germany. There were supposed to be 2 stages, a combined US and British airborne forces raised to seize 9 bridges, Market, followed by British landing forces quickly flowing over the bridges, Garden. On the whole, the success of Operation Market Garden has been debated ever since. The operation did successfully take 8 of the 9 bridges and establish a salient 65 miles into Nazi territory, but the failure of the operation to take the 9th bridge would lead to the last substantial Nazi victory of the war of the Battle of Arnhem, a battle for a bridge that was a bridge too far. With British and Polish troops parachuted in behind enemy lines, they eventually made it to the bridge at Arnhem, but a combination of radio failures hampering communication, poor weather delaying resupply of ground troops, and a strong counterattack by the Nazis made this battle too difficult. Despite some successes, including managing to eliminate the local Nazi commanding officer on day 2 of the battle, it became clear that the Allies' cause was lost, and whilst many were able to evacuate, the Nazis were still able to capture around 7,000 Allied soldiers, in addition to the approximately 2,000 killed in combat. The operation was over by Monday the 25th of September. Over the course of the battle, bombing and shelling had caused significant damage in the city, and with that taking at least 453 civilian lives. Following their victory, the Nazis cleared the city, evicting all the remaining residents of Arnhem before systematically looting the city of everything of value. On the 7th of October, Allied bombers finally managed to destroy the bridge at Arnhem, and in the following months, as the Nazis dug in, the city suffered further bombing raids, with yet more damage occurring during the final liberation of Arnhem in April 1945. Originally called the Rheinbrug, there had been a crossing of the Rhine at Arnhem, initially as a floating bridge, since 1603, though construction of the fixed link was only completed in 1935. Dutch engineers destroyed the bridge 5 years later in an attempt to slow the advance of the German army during the invasion of the Netherlands, but the Germans used pontoon bridges as a temporary replacement until the bridge was repaired in August 1944, just weeks before the battle for it. In 1948, an exact replica of the 1935 bridge was reopened and is the bridge that crosses the river to today. On the 17th of December 1977, the bridge was officially renamed to the John Frostbrug after Major General John Dutton Frost, who commanded the British forces at the Battle of Arnhem. The Battle of Arnhem was immortalised in the 1974 book by Cornelius Ryan, A Bridge Too Far, which was adapted into a film of the same name, also released in 1977. Lots more information about the battle and some of the key figures involved is on display in the Airborne at the Bridge Museum, located on the riverbank a few yards from the John Frostbrug. When the residents of the city returned following the liberation, they found the city almost completely reduced to rubble. The rebuilding of Arnhem took 24 years to complete. A symbol of the city's rebirth, and still today the tallest building in the city, is the Eusebius Kirk. An unnamed wooden church was already on the site when St Martin's Church was constructed in stone during the 10th to the 12th centuries. However, the church and city administrators didn't think that it properly reflected the importance of the city and decided to build a much larger church on the site, with work starting on the construction of a late Gothic church in 1452. As with all great ecclesiastical buildings, it took over a century for works to be completed, with works being completed on the Catholic Church just in time for the Dutch Reformation and its conversion to become a Protestant church, meaning many of the statues, altars and wall paintings that had only just been installed were removed. One of the key figures in the construction of the church was Karel van Egmond, the Duke of Gelderland and Count of Zutphen. Karel was a powerful ruler who turned Arnhem into an important political centre in Europe. Following his death in 1538, he was buried in the church, with his tomb still being a key feature in the building. Towards the end of the 19th century, the church was found to be in a poor condition and a restoration was started. The work was completed on the bulk of the church by 1930, though a tower hadn't been included in the renovation works. During the Battle of Arnhem, a fire broke out in the church which destroyed the wooden interiors and the roof. A review shortly after the battle revealed the church could probably be repaired, but with a forced evacuation of the town and looting by the Nazis, no stabilisation work could be undertaken, and in the winter of 1944-45 the tower finally succumbed to the stress put on it by bombing, the fire and months of exposure to the elements, and collapsed into the nave, destroying that as well. After the war, the church was rebuilt to its original appearance, apart from the tower, which was rebuilt in a new form, with works finally being completed in 1964. Further restoration works were carried out in the 1990s, during which a glass lift was fitted into the tower to whisk visitors up to the viewing platforms. Yet more restoration works were undertaken in the 2010s to replace the tower's stone cladding, which was starting to crumble. In the end, a significant part of the cladding was replaced with new stones that could handle the Dutch weather better. With the full reopening of the building in 2019, the church became a multifunctional space, holding church services on just a handful of occasions a year, but more becoming a living monument, an exhibition space, as well as the city's tourist office. The main church hall now has an exhibition on the history of the church and on Duke Karel. You can also descend down into the crypt below the church floors to see the tombs of 3 of William of Orange's nephews, as well as the remains of various other burial sites that were identified during reconstruction works. Also visible down here are some of the original foundations of St Martin's Church, the building that existed on the site before the construction of Eusebius Church. The glass lift added in the 1990s refurbishment whisks you up to the tower to the viewing platform, 73 metres up the tower, from where there's some of the best views of the city and the surrounding countryside, including sweeping views along the Lower Rhine. For those feeling a little more adventurous, the 2018 refurbishment added 2 glass boxes that extend out from the tower to the east at 62 metres up and the west at 59 metres up, complete with stomach-twisting glass floors. For the 12th largest city in the country, Arnhem benefits from large amounts of green space in the heart of the city. A broad sweep of parks surround the eastern and northern edges of the pedestrianised city centre, creating a green buffer to the roads that run around the edge of the historic core. The Musispark starts just beyond the Airborne Plain Memorial and roundabout and features a large lake, the only remnants of the old canal system of the city, with the bulk of the rest of the canals lost to infilling with rubble following the demolition of the city's walls in 1829. The park is also home to the Citizens' Bell. The bell was offered to the city by a committee of citizens in 1956 as a token of gratitude for what the municipality had done since the liberation of the city at the end of the war. Each year, the bell is sounded on the 17th of September. Dotted throughout the park are statues to Greek mythological gods that were originally created in the early part of the 18th century. At the end of the Musispark, and separated it from the continuing Janspark, is the Musis Sacrum, the city's concert hall. The building dates originally from 1847, though it went under a number of amendments and changes during its early years as the halls and spaces were adapted to meet the changing needs of the venue. The current neo-Renaissance appearance with its onion-shaped domes come from a modernisation and exterior refresh that took place in the 1880s. During the occupation, the Musis Sacrum was taken over by the German army and used as a Wehrmachtheim, literally the armed forces' home, a base for soldiers to use to relax in when they were off duty. After the war, restoration works were undertaken, with the site finally reopening to Arnhem public in 1949. From the Musis Sacrum, the green spaces continue in the Janspark. This curving park is home to a number of large fountains and further statues of Greek gods, starting with Poseidon as you walk into the park from the Musis. Park Sonsbeek is the most famous park in the city, named after Anna van Sonsbeek, a prominent lady in the 17th century Arnhem high society. On the upper slopes of the park, hidden amongst the trees, is the Belvédère. Originally built between 1824 and 1826 at 24 metres high and on the top of a 70-metre high hill, the tower offered views of the city and the surrounding area. The combined height of the tower and hill put it on a level with the top of the tower of Eusebius. Over the intervening years, the trees grew to hide the tower and cut the view, but this also saved the tower from destruction during the war, as its lack of view meant it wasn't considered a risk and was left standing by both the Nazi occupiers and the Allied bombing raids. In the 1950s, the tower was raised by another 5.6 metres to bring it back above the tops of the now fully mature trees. Next time, I take a tram ride through the whole of the Netherlands all at once at the Openluchtmuseum.